there's some kind of Jewish joke, which I don't really know what it is, but it's "you're right and you're right." And I think that both Professor Parfit and Genie are really saying the same thing, because we are looking at these communities in real time. Phenomenologically, it's here. They are real, and whatever their origins, whether their origins are deep and true and historically proven, or their origins are deep myth, which shapes everybody's identity, they are real and here today. So I want to say a few things. Kulanu, our mission is to rebuild the Jewish people by supporting emerging, returning, and isolated Jewish communities around the globe. We are in 33 countries, and because we're a little late for time, I'm cutting short some of the things I want to say. I want to focus on what is the Sephardi, Mizrahi, Yemenite influence in Africa. Now, this is a new thing, because now we could see these communities, like a broad view of these communities. And what I found, I was sort of shocked to see how deep Sephardi influence is. We can talk about Madagascar, and you can go online and Google about the Madagascar Jewish community. They have a rabbi from France, was he from Belgium, who settled there. He married one of the converts, has a family there, and now his community is Dor Daim. It's a Yemenite Rambamist community that follows strictly Rambam practice, but from a Yemenite perspective. That's something new. That's in Africa. And when my husband and I were there, and we said, "Are you Ashkenazi or Sephardi?" And they say, "Do we look European?" So by not looking European, they all call themselves Sephardim, and I'm going to go through a little survey that we have that kind of says that. In Tanzania, we're going to show a little video. They are descendants from Yemenite Jews, and they have graves that show and the whole thing, and you'll see the video later on in the program. In Cameroon, they studied they speak French, like in Cote d'Ivoire, and they go through French websites that are of Sephardi influence. There's Moroccan influence all over the French-speaking and Spanish-speaking type of world in Africa. I want to say in Cote d'Ivoire, you're going to see a video also of the founder. It developed out of a Kabbalah center. Okay? The vast majority use Sephardi prayer books. I'm going to get into that. So, I mean, there's a lot more detail I could say. They do Maimuna. They do Hilula de Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. In Cote d'Ivoire, they visit the graves in Morocco yearly or most of the time. They study with Sephardi teachers, sort of crypto-like online in Israel. Some of these teachers don't want to be known that they teach Africans. Okay, so it's kind of crypto under the radar teaching of Sephardi texts. When we were in Cote d'Ivoire the first time, they were learning the Ben Ish Chai. They were learning the Meyam Loez. These are heavy-duty Sephardi texts. And in what's the most frequently asked sefer beside the books of Jewish learning, beside prayer books and Chumashim and Machzorim? They ask for Tanya. They want to learn Hasidus. They want to learn, and that's from a Kabbalistic type of Sephardic tradition. So, I mean, which is blended, but you've got that Sephardi trend in it. So to be brief, we had, for the first time, a survey. In December, we had a conference in Cote d'Ivoire. They founded the Sub-Saharan African Jewish Alliance, And they became an advisory board to Kulanu. And what I'm hoping with Genie, she's going to set up LAJA, the Latin American Jewish Alliance, which will also be a feeder and advisory board to the Kulanu board, so that now we'll have communities put their own input into the way this should look, and that's the way it really should be. Oh, April 17th, Genie said. Okay, so I want to give you some short facts. We took a long survey. It was the first time Kulanu did any survey. And Beth Niven, who, I don't know if she's in the back of the room, but she's working one of the tables. She's retired from the New York City Department of Health, and she collected data on New York City flu and COVID, and so she was a data person, and she asked to volunteer, and I said, we're a volunteer organization, basically. Sure, would you like to help us put together a survey? And that, with some other people, we had a committee, and this is a piece that might be interesting to you. Okay. There were 38 respondents from 9 countries. Madagascar, Uganda, Cote d'Ivoire, Nigeria, Cameroon, Ghana, Tanzania, and Ethiopia. 53% study with rabbis outside of the community from once a week to daily. 42% have a Torah. 65% bake their own matzah. 43% converted. 62% want to convert. 57% identify as Orthodox. 19% identify as conservative. 3% identify as Reform, 11% identify as Hasidic, 7% identify as Kabbalistic. The remainder identify as other. 51% identify as Sephardi. 86%, this is a complicated number, which I haven't figured out, 86% report to not identify as Ashkenazi. So if you're not Ashkenazi and you want to define Sephardi as everything else, then you've got a huge percentage of people that are identifying as Sephardim. 12.5% identify as Mizrahi. Membership sizes of the communities range between 40 to 500. And in each country, we could have multiple communities. Like, we know in Nigeria of 82 synagogues that are there, but we haven't counted them all. And we think there's up to 200 communities in Nigeria alone. These are Igbo, who all say they are descendants from the tribe of God. Okay, so we have the stories of lost tribes as part of their Jewish identity, their Jewish history is how they would describe it. Okay, 60% conduct daily prayers, 95% conduct Friday night services, 32% have a mikveh. Of those that have a mikveh, 46% use natural water, 46% have regular children's classes. Then this is the other piece that Kulanu deals with. It's huge. We're grappling with the right way to deal with it. In more than half of the communities, 1 in 4 people are employed. Okay? More than half of the communities, 1 in 4 people are employed. In many of the communities, we are dealing with extreme poverty. Okay? In some of the communities, they're very wealthy. I mean, very wealthy. Like, I stayed in a home that belonged in Miami Beach, Florida, in Cote d'Ivoire. So you do have pockets of wealth in Africa now, and some of these people are involved, like politically, they're university heads, they're high-ranking government officials, doctors, lawyers. But for the most part, we are dealing with parts of Africa without running water, without electricity, what can I tell you, with droughts and famine. Michael is teaching some of the communities in Africa online. What Kulanu does, we have a technology fund, and we buy laptops and cell phones, and sometimes we have to buy our solar plates so they could charge their everything, because they don't have straight electricity. Even in the conference in Cote d'Ivoire, and we were in Abidjan, the capital, and we were in a nice neighborhood, the electricity was shoddy. When the air conditioner was on in that place, it went on and off. I mean, we didn't have great electricity even in the better places and not remote places. Okay. 82% report they have enough food, which is interesting. And so that's really what I want to say. And I'll address questions for me, Genie, Molly, any kind of comments. Oh, and we didn't thank, I'm not sure I thanked, Azaria Sussman and Uriel Sussman and some of my other Sussman grandchildren who are actually helping outside, okay? And of course I want to thank my husband, who without him, I couldn't do anything. He schleps me on the airplane to Nigeria and Africa. And if without my really wonderful husband, who's my partner in crime in all this, he has a Times of Israel blog, Gerald Sussman, and he writes columns on emerging Jewish communities. That's the focus. Okay. Any questions? Dora? Okay. Yep. Interesting new information for you. Like, wow. This is a new trend. I want to say this is new. The established Jewish world doesn't know how to deal with it. They question their authenticity. They question, are they for real? Are they doing this for economic gain? Like, are they really Jewish? Yes, Professor.
Very interesting. Thank you very, very much. And I agree with what you said, that Jeannie and I basically are in many ways in agreement, and that the phenomenon definitely exists. Obviously, I couldn't say everything in my allotted half an hour or whatever it was, and I didn't want to give the impression that I don't think these things are real. There may be kind of, however, some differences, but to Jeannie, a question, it could be, a fairly critical question in a way. So, Sylvia Plath very famously says in one of her poems, I think I may be a bit of a Jew, right? And by this, what does she mean? She means that, in some way she kind of thinks that she's Jewish. I also, by the way, have been known, to say such a thing. And so you've said it a couple of times in your talk. People get to the point when they say that they have always felt, not known, but felt Jewish. What does it mean to feel Jewish?
It's not political. It is just a question that so many ask me, and it's a very hard, because there's something. So for me, it started at the age of 6, sitting in a Catholic school, a convent school, kneeling in a pew, praying the rosary. And I did this I went through Catholic university, so this is like, which P.S., my parents and grandparents never stepped foot in a church in my whole, but schlepped me and my sister all the time. So I felt different. I'm just telling you from my perspective. I felt that I was not part of the people that I was sitting with, knew nothing at the time this big about Judaism, but something was wrong. Something. I even, and I don't admit this often, but I even, sometimes when I was sitting on my dad or my mom's lap, I'd go and check to see if they were wearing a mask. So I felt that I was somebody else imported into that family. And and later I identified it. I met my first Jew. I was maybe 8 years old, and I was fascinated by this little girl. and then I didn't see another Jew until I graduated from high school. So it was just something, tutor, that makes you feel different until looking at it from the back lens, you realize that you were grasping for the roots of the Catholic, or me, I was grasping for the roots of the Catholic religion instead of like the whole enchilada, in my case.
You know, I'm sitting here and I really don't want to forget to thank the right people. And there's one very, 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 very important person that I have forgotten to thank, and that's Joanne Friedman. And without Joanne, who does our financial accounting and sends out the checks and so Kulanu gives money to these communities, right? And the difficulty in sending money overseas or getting them the books or shipping to them whatever supplies they want, like right now the community in Indonesia wants a Megillat Esther, and we got one, so we will ship that to them. Or we have travelers. If you're traveling, we'll pay for a suitcase to get you to fill up, you know, an extra suitcase so that you can schlep the books. Because sometimes when we mail the stuff, it gets stuck either in customs or lost, or it never gets to the places. Wait, there's Dr. Ruth, right? Sitting there. We have a volunteer for Kulanu that's sitting here. And I met her here at a conference, sitting in having lunch a few months ago, and she became a Kulanu volunteer. And I'm hoping that people here, you know, get a bug for this. Certainly go to our website, kulanu.org. Certainly we need everybody who can help in their own way. Yeah.
I also want to thank somebody, Rabbi David Coleman, who asked a question later. Before. He has been working nonstop, hand in hand, calling me, checking, what do they need. He has sent over to Latin America Sidurim. He got us like, I don't know, 90 boxes of matzah. I started for Pesach, I started calling him Matzah Man. At the end, you know, we were just trying to figure out how to get, because it's very big and voluminous. But Rabbi Coleman is taking in a couple of weeks. How many children are you taking? From YU? He's taking them directly into our... You're taking... not. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I want to extend actually deep thanks also to Rabbi Nino over here, originally from Spain. And he actually spent Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and then he extended his stay over Sukkot to be with the community in El Salvador. So I'm very grateful that he's joined us here today as well. And inspired by the likes of Genie and Kulanu and so on, I've actually designed a trip right at the end of this semester for 35 Yeshiva University students. And a main focus, a primary focus of the trip will be to visit these communities in El Salvador and Guatemala, the emergent communities. And we're each bringing 2 suitcases with, and we're filling them up with supplies, both Jewish supplies, some other general supplies as well, even Kedem grape juice, you know, the things that we take for granted. I can go around the corner and buy in my supermarket are just not as easy to get over there. So we're really going to be spending a lot of our efforts the next month or two to fundraise and to fill those suitcases that we're going to bring out with us. And I want to thank especially Genie for all her support on that. So thank you.
How many kids are you taking from Kat Yeshiva?
So I'm also in touch. There's a yeshiva high school in Boca Raton, and because of our sort of collective efforts between Genie and myself, they've taken students for some years to Guatemala, but they've never really been involved with the emerging communities. So this year they're doing what we're doing. Not quite to the same extent, but they'll be dividing also their time this time between Guatemala and El Salvador, and they're taking close to 150 people. And we're working now on the same thing, that they should also, you know, not just come and sort of be a witness. That's good to just show up. I'm not to minimize just being there and showing up, but also to be able to bring some supplies, bring some essentials with them, really spend some time getting to know the Jewish community there as well. So it's going to be a very exciting summer for both the Floridians down in the Katz Yeshiva High School in Boca Raton and also for Yeshiva University.
Thank you, Rabbi Coleman. And it's volunteers like Rabbi Coleman that is teaching the next generation so that they don't grow up and do not understand this phenomenon. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Dora. Thank you all so much. It's just such important and moving material you're sharing with us and the work that you're doing in the world. So many, many thanks. A question that I have is, it's terrible to even start a sentence this way, but not in the slightest bit anti-Orthodox. But of course, in the communities that you're talking about, many might feel as they come to know what is Jewish and what is Judaism, and they come to know a variety of the ways no two Jews would say that or experience that the same, a variety of ways. And so, of course, many might feel called to orthodoxy, and many might feel called to things that aren't orthodoxy. And I understand that many people who are in positions of helping guide people on these kinds of journeys, who may themselves be completely open, might not themselves think that people have to return or convert or have a journey through orthodoxy. They may not say that themselves. But of course, I know many who say, I'm looking out for the people and the community, and if they want to not have to fight for the rest of their lives, and if they want to be accepted, I'm going to recommend Orthodox conversion or Orthodox education, which of course I completely understand where that's coming from. And for the most people, anyone I've spoken to, it really comes out of a position of care. My question is, when we keep hearing stories like Genie and others, when we keep hearing stories that Orthodox will still so frequently, so upsettingly reject people who even do make this journey through Orthodoxy, how does it still hold for people? Again, I'm not against it, but I'm trying to understand, given the reality that you say, when you still experience so much rejection through Orthodoxy, why would someone, a well-meaning person, still want to try to guide people, again, looking out for their well-being? I want to see if we can put that together.
Okay, so somebody recently said Kulanu is Amazon Judaism. You want Orthodox, you get Orthodox. You want conservative, you get conservative. You want reform, you get reform. It's an Amazon type of Judaism and pluralistic Judaism that communities come to. You saw in the video, we have Rabbi Elise Goldstein who did the reform conversions in Guatemala. The people come to us and ask for what they want. We're not sitting here saying, oh, this is right for you, that's right for you. They're coming and asking us. So and fortunately or unfortunately, and it depends on how you want to look at it, what changed this whole picture is the use of the internet and access to Judaism on the internet. And if you want to Google Shabbos, you get Eish and Chabad. If you want to Google Passover, if you're not getting a messianic site, you will get Chabad and Eish. You will get Orthodox sites. It's only if you know how to get a liberal Jewish site will you be able to find it. And since the bulk of the emerging communities came out of an internet sort of search, that's what they know, and that's what they ask for. And so I don't...
And I think, I'm not saying that you do direct people or sway people or tell people, but I know many cases, also knowing you too, that's why I know it's done really from the heart, that there are many cases that the people aren't clear, whatever, but the recommendation out of care might be orthodoxy, because if you want to be understood in Israel, whatever. I'm asking those instances, and I don't mean anything negative by it, and I'm not saying that many people don't come to you and ask.
I want to answer from my experience and not from all these communities. So the reason that I went Orthodox, I grew up in the 60s. There's enough jokes about Catholic school in the 60s. There's mugs made about this. I survived. And when I started searching for where I fit in with the Jewish community. I stayed a couple years in the Reform community. I stayed a couple years I lasted about 6 months in the Conservative. I was out 2 years in the Reconstructionist. And the only thing that fit me like a glove was Orthodoxy. Me specifically, because I grew up with the incense and the priest in the robes. And so I grew up in that, let's say, a lot of fanfare, a lot of ritual, so this is why I turned to Orthodoxy. I don't know, about other people, but we can talk about it afterwards. But Bonita is right. We are for whatever they want. My personal motto on this whole thing is return to the Jewish people. I don't care what you're eating. That's my motto. I don't care what you're doing on Saturday, but return to the Jewish people. That's my personal.
Let's do one last quick question.
Sure. What, can I make a more comment on that? Because I'm so totally on the same page as Genie. After Hitler and after the destruction of Jewish communities in North Africa, the decimation of those communities that don't exist anymore in Egypt and Libya and Tunisia, wherever there were Jews, and in Libya, and they all got thrown out, we need more Jewish communities. And whatever they want, they should be able to get. And we know in Africa, the largest established one that's been doing it 100 years is in Uganda, and they got conservative conversions. So, this is really an open-ended question. It's really open-ended, and we have a woman in Uganda. It's a colorful question. The big thing that I'm concerned with is that some of the vitriol in the United States within the movements, that we don't transpose that to Africa. And that I think the Sephardi model, where we're all Jews and do what you want, but our synagogues will have a certain prayer book or look, that to me is a clearer vision for the future of Judaism in Africa than having, I go to this shul, I go to that shul, I won't step foot in your shul, you're not kosher enough for me, I don't accept your conversion, that's a lot of hooey. And in America, it's based on institutional affiliation, and they're grabbing money from the same Jewish population. So there's monetary concerns about the real splits in the American Jewish community between the movements. And, so there's institutional loyalty, and there's all kinds of other stuff that really supersedes, Jewish identity and loving the Jewish people and oneness of who we really are.
I think, Georgina, you had a question?
Yes, I do want to answer to the professor, how does it feel to be a Jew without knowing that you are a Jew? I felt adopted. I felt rejected by when we went outside our little community. I didn't fit in with the kids that were not from my community. Also, I felt a rejection to the Catholic Church every time I went by myself. My parents never went to church, so I was the only one going to the Catholic Church. I didn't understand why I was writing in a foreign language that I didn't know, and then I find out later that I was writing in Solitreo. Why I was having dreams of this woman being in a room waiting to be trial. Then we find out Constanza de la Garza, which is my ancestor. She was trial, and she died before she was trial, and they burned her after she passed away. And in a lot of dreams that I was in Spain, in seeing these buildings in my dreams that I had never seen in real life or movies, and then going to Spain, to the University of Salamanca for 2 years, and seeing these buildings, and seeing Toledo, and seeing all these people, and feeling, I belong here. That's the way. And then finding out, because Judaism was a secret in Mexico, we never knew what a Jew was or a synagogue or anything of that. But then someone telling you, oh, do you know there's a secret in your family? Your uncle practices Judaism. And you go, what is it? Oh, it clicked. Now I feel like I belong, even though now about citizenships, I have 4. I have Mexican, American, Portuguese, and Spanish, because Spain and Portugal does recognize me. And I'm not doing it for the money. I'm not doing it for the status or any citizenships. I'm doing it because my ancestors read the Torah, and I do want to return to Judaism, and I'm returning to Judaism to read what my ancestors read. And I'm here because I am a survivor from what happened long time ago. And I'm happy that now, because of technology, I'm able to connect and be able to read all of these beautiful books, which is the Torah. And I'm a woman, and I do sometimes read Tanya and the Zohar, even though I'm not married. They say to read the Zohar, you have to be married after 40. But when I read all of this, you know, the transcriber for the Zohar, Moshe de Leon, I'm the Leon. I'm a Garza de Leon. And de Leon is everywhere. She's also de Leon. And I'm very hungry to go back to those books. And it's a refreshment. It feels, oh, my body, my genes, my cells, every part of my body was missing this book that was very prohibited. So that's how it feels to be a Jew.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing your story. It's beautiful.